Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands
upcoming tours,
and show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
January 23rd, 2023.
and we're back. Middle of January, lots going on. This past weekend saw Humphreys McGee celebrate their 25th anniversary. Disco Biscuits did a spin the wheel show. Spafford has been all over all week, giving free videos on YouTube, and we are here to break everything down with you. We're going to have the top three stories in just a few minutes. We have part of our interview with Raina Mullen from Ghostlight coming up. She was fantastic. We're going to get into that. And we also have an audience participation thing that we shot off this morning about destination for bands, dream destinations to see a band. Amanda, how are you doing this evening?
Hello, Kevin. I am good. It was a quiet weekend over here, but I'm going to make up for it this coming week with some music. So excited for that.
Have you been catching any streams?
You know what? I kind of just took a little time off this weekend, do some family things. But next weekend, I'm going to be seeing some local bands out here in Denver. So gonna be excited for that.
I nailed two Dead and Company Monday and Tuesday. Then I did Spafford for a few nights, and last night was Humphrey's 25th. So I've pretty much been had my eyes glued to different music. Can I just say we talked to Spafford? That's coming out soon. Or if you haven't caught the short, you can look for it on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. They talked to us about Red leaving and Corey Scheckman coming in, and just listening to Corey, he's totally like he's always been there. He's just done an incredible work. And my concern, if you remember, Amanda, was losing some of the songs. I don't think they've missed a beat with what they kept, and like they said, they got enough songs to carry it.
Oh yeah, and that's a band that definitely I think has such a strong kind of unique energy about them, especially live. That I think sometimes this thing can be a really good change in some ways too. It's going to push them into some different areas
Right.
possibly.
New blood, new life.
Yeah.
There we go. So let's why don't we jump in? We got so much this week. Let's jump into your top three stories of the week.
The top three stories of the week.
Okay. Well, Kevin, you actually already touched on one of these. I thought it was important to mention Humphreys McGee, who played with Eggy, of course, at the Capitol Theater this weekend to celebrate that 25th anniversary. Another band turning 25 years old or older. But it kind of just goes to show you the giants, if you want to think of it that way, in our scene. So many of them have been around since about the same time frame. So really excited that they had what seems like a great run of shows. And, maybe this actually does connect also a little bit to some other news, of course, David Crosby. There were a lot of tributes this weekend, probably from lots of bands, but
I think Mo did one.
yeah, I'm starting to see those come in. I know Humphreys and, well, Eggy especially, they
Yeah.
are a band that,
They're huge, yeah.
yeah, they've definitely done full set tributes.
They took the David Crosby correspondence course for harmonies there. They are so great with that.
They are, and you can just feel that. I feel like Crosby's always just been, yeah, as you said, a really big part of who they are. So definitely something that I'm sure was really meaningful for them. And even on the Humphreys side, which you're not going to necessarily put David Crosby and Umph together, but after their typical dance party, I know who is it, Brendan, Jake, Joel, they got
Yeah.
on stage as a trio, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
and I just thought that's great, that acoustic feel, something very different, but shows you I think the weight of the legend that David Crosby was and what he did for everybody.
We had somebody else die too. Why don't we mention that and throw caution to the wind, and then we'll hop into the other two stories. And this other death, as much as I like David Crosby, Jeff Beck passing really hit me hard. Just he always seemed like the coolest guitar player that ever came out of the Yardbirds compared to Clapton or Page.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just as one band, so much history came out of the Yardbirds. And I went and I checked because I said, I know in those days, a lot of people were not spending, decades with a band. He was there for what, a year and a half.
Yeah.
But really just so much great music. And I know a lot has been said. I don't think I could add anything that's especially deep or meaningful. However, I think for anyone that maybe knows the name, but maybe not the discography, this might be a really good opportunity to go back, listen to the Jeff Beck group. And
I don't think we got any Jeff Beck tributes that I heard from any bands. Nobody busted out Beck's Bolero or something like that.
yeah, I think that he's an interesting figure in musical history in the sense that you can't argue, and I can't imagine anyone would argue with, legacy and just the respect. But at the same time, he's somebody that kind of had maybe a bit of a softer impact than others did in different ways. So, I'm glad to see that people are recognizing that, but maybe a good time to dive in a little bit and take a listen to some things. So our second story this week, this is an artist that I don't know that much about, Zach Bryan. Kevin, have you ever heard any of his music? He's a up and coming country star.
No, I have not.
Okay, so the reason I'm mentioning Zach tonight, this is the ongoing, ever evolving saga of Ticketmaster, right, and everything that's going on there. Out of all the voices out there speaking against Ticketmaster, and there are many, Zach Bryan has become maybe a person at the forefront of this situation. And he has gone public saying that he is announcing or has announced that his upcoming tour is going to avoid Ticketmaster in favor of Axis. And this is going to be a situation where in some cases, there actually will be tickets that Axis cannot resell at all. So he's trying something different. Yeah, it's called Fair Access, which is something that I wasn't very familiar with, but I thought it deserved a mention because he's really trying to get around and avoid that Ticketmaster situation.
My question would be, all right, I buy a ticket to see this guy. I can't go. I'm dead. I got COVID. I can't leave my house. I just got to eat it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be something that we'll have to see on the flip side. How do people feel about it?
What if I buy you a ticket and we don't go in together? Do I have to attach your name to it? I don't know. We're going to have to look.
It's going to be really interesting. So I'm going to try to follow this particular situation. And we do have time. I think that it's going to be at least 2 or 3 weeks before any of those tickets officially go on sale. And so we'll just keep our ears out for how that's going and what people think about it. All right, so there's our second story. Third story for this week. This is another one that kind of caught my eyes. I'm trying to find interesting things to share with everybody. Oh, hang on, Kevin. I'm getting a technical thing going on. This is what happens. Oh, all right, there we go. So the last story for this week, I've been seeing some news about the MSG Sphere, and I'm just going to be honest, I am completely fascinated by this gigantic, gumball that's being built. But in the last couple of days, they've begun testing what I guess is now officially considered the world's largest LED screen. So they are making progress, but it was enough to garner some videos that are actually pretty cool to watch. And 5 years later, I think they actually are about to launch this thing later this year.
Now, do you think that it will happen this year? Because I've been hearing it's not going to happen. That U2 was supposed to open in October, November, and that hasn't been, it hasn't been put in stone yet because they aren't sure it's going to be able to actually happen.
It's got to be a really tough balancing act because you're dealing with acts like that. And so it's not something you can just throw out there, at the last minute. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of things, but I think with this latest kind of update and what we can see is happening there, it seems like things are moving forward. Yeah.
Right. There's light at the end of the tunnel there.
Yeah, literally. And it's LED screens.
There you go. All right. Very good. So that was our top 3 stories of the week. Let's get into this Raina Mullen interview. I must say that Raina was the nicest person in the world. She She was very giving in her answers. And this first thing we're going to talk about is that we talked to her about was I saw some videos of her playing with Holly, just the two of them. So we asked about that, and then we got into the new album a little bit and Holly leaving. So let's take a listen and come back on the other side. You doing duets with Holly, Nick of Time, Radiohead song, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. You know, it reminded me of, let me just say this. I am a huge Laura Nyro fan. And watching the two of you, I was just like, they should do a Laura Nyro song together. But
I don't know who that is. I should write that name down.
Oh, yeah. She has an album called New York Tend to Berry. But so how did that come about? I totally went off track.
Well, the Radiohead cover of Black Star, that I heard the I think it's Gillian Welch cover of that tune, Black Star, and I just loved how that felt. And we did play that live as Ghostlight a few times, which was really fun. But the piano version that she and I did, I think that's a video of us playing at like Ardmore Music Hall. I just liked having that acoustic feeling. I love acoustic music. Like I grew up playing acoustic guitar. That's how I learned to play. Singer-songwriter, like through and through. So that's forever embedded in my like musical essence. So if ever I get to like do acoustic stuff, I feel like there's real intimacy in what I can bring like vocally at least to that. And with the Bonnie Raitt cover, there's a great Bon Iver cover that he does. It's got a ton of views on YouTube, but I've watched it a million times. And I love the way that he arranged those two songs together, and we sort of did our version, and then she improvises a little bit at the end, and so do I, and I thought it was really magical. That was like the one thing we did over the real period of lockdown when she traveled across the country doing her like wilderness sessions, and that was the first time we had gotten together since the beginning of the pandemic. So it felt really special. I wanted to record it. I was like, let's just create something together, and that was at Tom's studio in North Philly. And he's got a wonderful space where we made the second album. We spent a lot of time in there, and I like helped paint the walls when we put it all together because it was a bare room. So he built the control room in that, and now it's a really special space that hopefully will create the next album in, you know? So it was nice to film something in there, and that was sort of the start of getting back into creating music at that moment in time.
Well, first, I just want to say that when you were talking about kind of where you all are right now, it just reminded me of a quote that I had seen that Tom had said about the healing, which is something like, the story is not so much about the fallout as the recovery. And I was just listening to you, and I'm like, if there's anyone that's poised to, you know, like you said, really embrace what the next chapter is going to be, I feel like it's all of you, just reading what's been said about the album and kind of where it comes from. So to me, I just felt like you're almost living some of that in some degree. It's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know, maybe I'm totally like extrapolating.
No, I think you're spot on. You know, it's funny how I feel like life imitates art, and then art imitates life, and then it's full circle, and then the songs sort of change meaning to you personally over that amount of time. Like some of the songs on the album we've had for a while, but the more that you play them, the more they evolve and change meaning. And in the healing, the title of the record itself, like we're still healing. Like it's a never ending process, I think. And life is always changing. So like having Holly lead the band, you know, we have a little bit of healing to do as a group, but if anything, it just makes us stronger as a core, and we're more dedicated to the goal of the band and moving forward, instead of being like, oh, it's a hiccup, like everything is ruined. It's not like that, you know. That's not how life works. You move forward, and you find a way through, and it is a new chapter.
Well, Kevin, I completely agree that talking with Raina was just a breath of fresh air. I think her honesty in acknowledging what a difference Holly leaving will make, but also saying this is going to push us to be better and to maybe think of our own work differently, to me is about as honest as you can get. And then, yeah, we had this really great conversation with her that came out of that about Joni Mitchell, just the idea of lyric writing itself. And I thought that Raina showed a lot of depth in the music that she listens to, and Joni definitely a personal hero for her.
All right, let's take a listen to that. A lot of jam band lyrics don't touch on more interpersonal things. They're either goofy songs or these blanket statements about sentiments about love. It seems to me that you have a point of view as a lyricist in another place.
I think as far as lyrics go, like I I try to bring as much of myself to the table as I can because I feel like that's how you build community, is like letting your cards show a bit. Like that intimacy is really special and that's how people connect to you.
And I think a lot
Um
of guys have trouble expressing that in their lyrics, maybe on
sure,
some
yeah.
level.
On some level for sure. And within our world, it I think it depends on the band, but there are a lot of silly lyrics out there that I'm just like, that I don't relate to that. Um but I write from my own experiences and like me trying to figure out my emotional well-being, whether that be like anger or sadness or heartbreak or whatever. But that stems from like classic singer-songwriter music like Joni Mitchell. I think for me, she is it. And I know people say that all the time, but it's like it's so true. She's a phenomenal writer, and her way of showing you her life experience through poetry, that is beyond. That is like the end all be all.
Like I said, the female perspective, we need more female voices in the jam band scene. It just provides, just, I guess it's how we're brought up, but there's a depth to her lyrics that I don't find in a lot of other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is someone who also has been able to kind of learn and grow in her own skills, being surrounded by really talented and what seem to be very supportive people too.
Yeah, Tom, I guess he's been great shepherding her, mentoring her along there, and you can tell how much she appreciates what he did. Then the next thing we got into was a little bit of touring, and I know we always like to ask that, so let's listen to that, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
One thing that you had mentioned that I was thinking about was the touring aspect of things, and that you had kind of come out of college and then really were kind of put into that scene. So I was just curious because this does come up sometimes for us. Like for you, what's touring life like? Do you enjoy it? Like what anything about it that you're like, meh, because it's a very unique place to be, even if you're out
Yeah.
a weekend at a time.
Yeah. I mean, I in my early touring, I felt so scared of doing something wrong on stage, and I think that many musicians can sort of relate to that, working in fear. Um just because putting yourself out there is really scary. So that's sort of where I lived for a while. And then even when Ghostlight did like our first tours, now I feel more confident as a musician, as a person on stage with myself as an adult. I think it's just like growing up too. You just feel more comfortable in your being. So I feel great in like what I can bring to the table and how I can connect with an audience. I love touring. I love going to different cities. I don't mind the long drives. It's hard. I have a lot. Like I wear a lot of hats when we're in the band. I help do the merch. Help design the merch. Um I do all the social media for the band. So like that's all the forward facing stuff that you see. I'm the one putting all that stuff up. Um so I love being in a band. I like creating something that can have a lasting impact and uh the touring aspect and connecting with the fans and meeting people at the merch table. Like I love going out after the shows if I have the energy, if we have the time, because sometimes we have to like drive an hour and a half or 2 hours after the show, then we do the rest of the drive the next day. There was a lot of it that was like super overwhelming, caused me so much anxiety in the first half of Ghostlight, like the first 2 years. But after the pandemic, I was just like, I need this in my life. Like this is part of who I am. It makes you appreciate everything so much more. Something being taken away and then giving back to you is like, that's how you know to sort of put your ego or whatever in check. Like just because it's hard doesn't mean that I don't want to do it. Like I just love it more now. Yeah, it just made me appreciate it so much.
You want to talk about the video for the healing? Is there a visual aspect to you, like the vision of the band?
So yes, I've always wanted to make music videos, especially with our music. I wanted to do it for the first album, and we did make a music video, but it did not turn out good. So we just canned it. We were like, no, this cannot be public. But with this record, my boyfriend is a editor, a movie editor, and our best friend Christian is a cinematographer. So they have like a little film thing together. So I utilized the people that I knew would want to help and create wonderful art together. So they both did the Take Some Time video at the studio and the healing. But the concept for the healing, we wanted it to be like very much feel like a movie. And Tom and I worked out ideas together for that. Like each verse is its own little story. And we used the locations that we had available to us, like that the last scene where we're in the river is in the Wissahickon River in Philly. And
Is that safe?
you know, the water looked clean.
So we just go with, what we can see on the surface. And
I mean, it was when we shot, it was like a beautiful morning and the water was really clear. It was a little cold, but not that cold. Like it honestly wasn't bad at all. And we found this house in Germantown that was like, it had this like vintage look to it. Like, a lot of my visual inspiration comes from like the 1900s. The house that I grew up in was built in the 1700s. So it's like ancient in this old red house, big thick wood panel flooring or whatever, and like I feel like a lot of my like history of like loving old things, my dad was an antique guy, like comes from that. So I see those things visually in my head and I'm like, how can I incorporate that into the art? Like with Faces in the Moon, that song, there's like sort of elements of that old style, like lyric wise. But yeah, we rented a place for a day, and the like scene where it's all sped up and we're having like arguments at the table. It's funny, like I was reflecting on that and it's like, didn't see that would be like sort of a little bit of reality, but it kind of was. you know, but I like set decked all that stuff. Like the china on the table is like my great aunt's china. I like love doing all that artistic stuff. It's so fulfilling to have the music and the visuals be one. And me and Tom really love being the like force behind that. And he loves movies, so like he's got that in his brain.
Kevin, I am always so curious to see what people really think of being on the road. And it sounds like it's something that's Raina's grown into, which I definitely agree takes some time to be with people in that kind of environment. One thing that really surprised me was after that, Raina started talking about some of the videography work that she's done. In addition to the social media merch, Raina is just involved in everything, but her enthusiasm and passion for creating the visuals around the band, to me, was just really cool.
Anybody who hasn't seen it should go check the video out. It's on YouTube. but her talking through the problems that they were going through in COVID and everything. And I think that it really comes through in the production and what you're seeing. It's a great, there's a great nexus there between what the lyric is, what the music is, and what she came up with. So we closed out with personal philosophy because we love to stump people. If you're ever coming on the show, anybody out there listening, we are going to ask you your personal philosophies on life. And she got a little deep with us. So let's listen to that. We'll come back on the other side. What are some of your personal philosophies on life and the universe and music and everything?
Ooh, that's a big question.
Save that one for the end.
My personal philosophies. I think for a long time, like I said earlier, like I lived in fear of messing up, and being a female playing guitar in like a rock band is pretty scary when like you're just constantly surrounded by men, to be honest. So I was scared that my ability was not good enough, or what I was bringing to the table was just not what others could bring. But I've realized now, I'm 29, that what I can bring to the table is just so different from what anybody else can bring to the table. And I've put in the hours of practice of my craft to feel good about what I do now.
It is a boys' club, isn't it?
It is. And it's always sort of been that way, and that's okay. But I'm
a lot
happy.
of females were either just the singer or they were part of a girl group.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but then I look at bands like Heart, and I'm like, those fucking ladies kick some serious ass. And Anne can play the hell out of the guitar. Or Nancy, sorry, my bad. Nancy can play the hell out of the guitar. And like that is the confidence that I've always wanted to bring to the table. And my favorite band when I was a teenager was Paramore, and still is Paramore. And they're like a pop punk band, like, and she's a female front woman, and I looked to her for so much inspiration. I would color my hair the same color as her when I was in high school. Like, I pulled so much of her confidence into my being as a musician. And I think like part of my philosophy is that like just do your best, and like that's okay. Believe in yourself. Like I didn't believe in myself for a long time, even though I knew music was what I wanted to do. And I think I've finally come to the point in my life where I finally do believe in myself and my abilities and what I can create and bring to the table as an artist. And to not give up, even though it's hard. Like touring is incredibly difficult. It's like one of the craziest jobs people can have.
All right. So I guess that's all we can say is what she said. And you have any last thoughts on that?
Getting the chance to talk to Raina like we did really opened up my eyes to how much she brings to the work that she does, how much thought. And I loved getting to hear the background of how she grew up, which I know that has influenced her a lot with her family and where she lives and everything. I thought that was great.
If you want to hear the full interview, we talked to her for about 45 minutes. We're getting about 20 of it out there now. www.allthatjampod.com. Go over and sign up for the email list. We started a YouTube channel, and we found that that's going to be the best way to put the full uncut interviews up if you want to listen to them. You can follow us at All That Jam Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. Make sure that when you go to Apple or Spotify, like, subscribe. If you're on Apple, please, with the reviews. The reviews are going to put us over the top. And with that, let's jump back in. Amanda, you asked a question this morning. Let's talk a little bit about what you put out there on the socials and the answers we got.
Yeah, I'm a curious lady. So I was wondering, as we're kind of emerging, well, a little bit, right? Our thoughts are emerging to spring and already thinking about summer tour plans. A lot of people I know are traveling right now or have some really, really great travel coming up for music. And so I was curious where people would want to go. So I threw out the question on Twitter and Instagram. And Kevin, I was curious. Number one, is there a place in the world that you would especially like to travel to see music? And then the second part of that is, what part of the world do you think may have been the most popular answer? Do you have any ideas for that one?
The most popular answer, I think, would be one of these destination things where you go and you see the band and you have the room and the buffet and the alcohol and all that. Myself, I love what Billy's been doing. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go follow Billy around, but I could see saying, I want to go see Europe. I'm going to attach 3 or 4 shows and know that I can hit a city in Germany, a city in Czechoslovakia. Well, Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore, but along a city in France, maybe one in England, maybe a show in Ireland, and be able to see some European cities and have enough time to do some other stuff. Beyond that, I'm happy with being in the United States. I mean, I my favorite shows are bar shows, so I can drive a half hour into Baltimore City and feel completely at home.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of club shows myself. But I'll tell you, based on the people who responded, Canada, so different areas of Canada, and then Japan came up most frequently. At Scotty Nacho said, I'd love to see something in the Halifax area. So big Halifax fan over there. And actually, personally, there's a band that I love called Apollo Suns. They're out of Winnipeg, and they last year just started doing a bunch of US dates as a part of their tours. So definitely, music spread all throughout. But there are some interesting answers I was going to share. Let's see, Portugal. At Jam Vehicle, very practical, said shortest flight to Europe from the US, an amazing country. So I appreciate that. Now, this is not international, but Hawaii came up a couple times. So did Florida, but I'm not going to get into that, where that one came in. Some other places, the Netherlands, Peru. Let's see here. Italy did come up a few times, and I was laughing because, I'm an honest person, Kevin. I totally forgot that Pompeii had an amphitheater. It's not really something that I think about on a daily basis, but we got some photos from someone who had been there, so that's great. Let's see here. Over on Instagram at rwalters1706 mentioned the Royal Albert Hall, that he had toured inside that on a non-show day. I was there once and couldn't get in at all, so at least he's got one up on me. But yeah, there's a fascinating kind of list here. Let's see here. One person at Turn Clowns mentioned that he'd like to see more island all-inclusive destinations outside of Mexico. So that kind of gets to your point, Kevin.
Right. Like, who does that? Warren Haynes, Government Mule. They always do Island Exodus in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to going to Mexico. What about, did anybody mention cruises? Because
Nobody.
Jam Cruise is something I might go on just because you could sleep and catch a band whenever you woke up and just spend 4 or 5 days in a fog out in the middle of the ocean.
I've always wanted to do that. Maybe that'll be next for me because it definitely is appealing. And the lineup is always so good. Always. I mean,
how can you go wrong?
You can't. And we'll just end with at Creative Muffin, love that handle, is just happy to be able to go to any country that allows felons to enter. So sometimes you got to set your bar, at a certain place.
Low or high.
Yeah.
Belize.
Yeah.
No extradition treaty.
Exactly.
Don't ask me why I know that. So, all right. So make sure that you go over, you sign up for the email. Make sure that you follow us on the socials. Next week, we're going to have an interview, which I'm really excited about, a guy named Jimmy Montague. And Jimmy is not liking touring. He doesn't want to play live shows. So it was fascinating conversation with him, Amanda, about another side of it, the Steely Dan, I guess, side of the music business.
Yes, I agree. And it's a great conversation because it does put into perspective. And I think maybe it's a good reminder that not every person who makes beautiful music is wanting to also go hit the road, 80 times a year or more. And
Exactly.
And I think that that's an important part of the industry too.
Yeah. So make sure that you follow us so you know when all this stuff's coming out. Turn on some notifications. It's all going to be out there. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll talk to you soon, Amanda.
All right. Have a good one, Kevin.